philosophy of my school would be to service those at-promise students that for whatever reason were not successful in their traditional high school. They may have dropped out of school for whatever reason. They may just be deficient in credit to be able to obtain their high school diploma, whether it's a special diploma or a standard diploma, and just overall just assisting and helping out the students to better themselves, have a better future, and I think that's what the philosophy is. Before micro school, I was doing absolutely nothing. I wish I could have been doing something. That's why I was looking for an opportunity to advance myself, and this is the fastest opportunity that I could find. I would have to consider the teachers actually help you with what you need, the work, with like it's basically a one-on-one, even though they had a whole classroom.
I think the biggest difference in learning here and in a traditional public school is the students' ability to go at their own pace, to be able to complete and to move on without having to wait for the rest of the class to move on with it.
You know, regular school, you have to be done with a certain subject at a certain time. Here, you can take as long as you want and until you understand it, and then you can move on afterwards.
The thing that I like about micro school is that you work at your own pace, you get to your goals quicker, and it has a flexible schedule.
I am really proud of myself that I got through everything because all the hard work and dedication really did pay off.
My family and my friends are super excited. My mom is really happy that I could graduate on time, like she wanted me to, like I wanted to. My godfather, he's real proud of me. He thinks the world of me. My mom, she's really super proud of me.
If you're interested in completing that high school diploma and getting back on track, perhaps college in the near future, my suggestion is get in touch with micro school as soon as possible. Find out when their orientation schedule is, make an appointment, and come in and start that process as soon as possible.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity Citrus County has given us to take our school model and bring it to a district in a small version. That's what our application here at Citrus County is all about, District 2. Because our larger schools serve about 250 students, and we've been looking for a way to bring it to smaller rural districts. And the opportunity to bring it here is very important to me. I kind of grew up in Citrus County, and this is my home. Yes?
I just want to add something to what Ms. Baldry said, and most of you will know that this program is similar to the Old Horizons. And I know that when we disbanded that and put that back at the school, it's meeting needs of other students, some of our at-risk students at the local high schools, which meet their needs. And we're starting to see a need now for what Joy can provide for our district.
We do serve an older student population. Our average age is about 18 years, 7 months. And we try to get students who have dropped out of school back engaged, back productive citizens in the district again.
How does that work with FTE if they're older students?
The same as it does with a regular public school. You can claim students up to age 25, I believe.
Where would the students be? Are they going to be at our schools? Are they going to be in their home or combination? Or
we will have our own school facility. Right
Okay.
now we don't have a location totally locked in, but we are looking at a facility in Beverly Hills area because we'd like to be able to pull from the Donnell and Marion County outskirts as well as Citrus County.
would it be like a storefront type?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
And what will your hours be?
Our hours will be from 7:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon. We'll offer a flexible schedule. The students have to attend 5 hours within that period. during the school day. But we offer flexible scheduling for students who have to work, who have families, who, you know, can't make it in a regular school session.
So flexible within the day, but not flexible how many days they attend?
No, they have to attend the standard 25 hours a week.
Okay, I think that's a big difference between our Horizon. Our Horizon was much more flexible because a lot of the students that came there were working full-time. Some of them were parents, some of them were supporting their parents, and so some of them came to school when they could. And so I think that was one of the challenges is getting them there, but it was also one of the godsends for some of these kids because it was the only way that they could go to school by not having to make that daily commitment. That's why a lot of them dropped out to begin with. So my fear would be that, you know, we're extending a high school, traditional high school setting as a charter school and not really offering any true alternatives. You know, closing the doors at 5:30 p.m. doesn't serve a lot of students. How late did Horizon at the very beginning of one step? Yeah, a lot of kids came at night, especially now we have a WTI GED program that runs at night. So
Our curriculum is available 24/7 though. It is available online as well as in school. So, and we do provide technology to students who need it that don't have it.
So how would that work? If I couldn't come to your school during those hours, I could do my program at night as an online program?
No, you have to
Still have to be
be in
there.
school for 5 hours a day. Now, we can work with you if you work, you know, from 12 to 5, we can work with you where you come from 7:30 to 12.
What if you work 8 to 5:30?
8 to 5:30, then you will have difficulties completing school.
And that's where most businesses operate 8 to 5:30. Yeah, so, I mean, you know, listen, I don't know, we've never had to approve a charter contract before, so I don't know what the parameters are for us in approval. Just these kind of simple things maybe have no impact on whether or not we have the ability to approve it or not approve it, but I'm just sharing with you what our experiences have been. I really love the concept of your program. I don't love the structure of the hours and the days and the attendance requirement because we know from experience that that's the issue for a lot of these students. So we're just not changing the situation and causing them to drop out to begin with.
And I don't disagree with Ms. Dorfman. However, our high schools are starting to see more and more kids come to us at 18 or 19 years old with 2 or 3 credits and then want to enroll in high
Right.
school. Those are probably the students that we would refer to Ms. Baldry. And the time is a concern because I know there are students out there who work all day, but there also is a group, we're seeing a bigger group all the time of wanting to go to a regular traditional high school. So we were thinking that might be a.
Do we know how many?
I don't probably have an exact number.
Our goal is 150 students.
So you're setting up for 100, to serve 150
Right.
students right off the bat?
From surrounding counties and Citrus or just from Citrus?
Around the county as
Okay.
well, so. And I do understand what you're saying about the time, but there's legislation, and I'm not sure that you're aware. But there's a new legislation that's coming out for 2015-16 that says that we offer a blended learning program, which means that our classes are online, but we're a teacher-directed program, so we have, you know, the teachers in the classroom actually directing instruction, but in 2015-16, we can offer virtual classes in a more flexible format for those types of kids, because our virtual classes can count as FTE credit. But that does not go into effect till 2015-16, so I could not write that into the charter. But we will have virtual teachers. We have virtual teachers now. Within our curriculum, there's a red button that the student pushes, and it brings up a live virtual teacher anytime they're working in the classroom or at home as well.
How many teachers are there in the border building that you're going to acquire? And
We'll
how
have-
many online? What's the balance online?
We'll have 5 certified highly qualified teachers, 1 for each core area and an ESE teacher. And then we'll have 2 to 3 virtual teachers that are also highly
So
qualified.
5 certified would be in the building.
In the
and
building at all
accessible
times.
to the
Right.
students. Okay. And then 2 virtual.
2 to 3
Where are these 150 students going to come from?
from Citrus County and the surrounding areas.
So are they already students that are enrolled in our school system or that and have dropped out and may want to come back? Or, I mean, that's a lot of students.
Yeah, we will work specifically with the district to target students that have dropped out. That is our population.
Would have already dropped out?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing, is this the same structure and model that you're following that you have right now in from Gainesville?
Correct.
Exact same program?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so the hours and the number of the attendance requirement isn't an issue in Gainesville?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
And ours is, and this model is even more flexible than what they do in Gainesville and our other schools. They offer 2 shifts from 7:30 to 12:30, from 12:30 to 4:30. Where the model that we're bringing here is 7:30 to 5:30 with flexible scheduling throughout the day.
So looking at the research that's been done as far as identifying the need, am I hearing from the administrative team that we have a need for this type of program?
This is an answer to some of the things that our high schools can't fill, because when we have students show back up at our high school who have dropped out, now they want to come back, they're 18 years old, we've got 2 or 3 credits. We can't do
We
that.
don't go beyond that.
Right.
And that blended learning model that she says is their key to success with that demographic. Have we attempted a blended learning model within Citrus County Schools?
We do with our Play-Doh labs at the school, but again, the population that Joy is going to deal with, we can't really accommodate at our schools, because again, they're in an environment of 14 and 15-year-old kids, and
Yeah. that's
21,
it.
22-year-olds don't belong.
Looking at the actual degree that's produced, we'll have that relationship where they'll have the base school and the degree will come from whatever base school they refer. Is that?
No, I think that you'll actually have your own
Right.
Or
diploma.
you have your own degree?
Yes, we're fully advanced accredited and we supply our own diplomas.
Okay.
But you have, so is this a public charter?
It is public choice.
Yeah, because you're getting FTE. So you have to comply with all the state graduation requirements, including the course exam and whatever's taking the place of FCAT and all the other issues that we have. So are you also going to deal with students that have a certificate of completion but who have not passed the FCAT for graduation purposes? Are you going to allow those students to attend,
Yes, we do allow.
even though they don't meet any credits?
Yes, but when they enter our program, they have to complete our requirements as well as the district's.
Okay, so what are your requirements on top of, if a student had a certificate of completion and had everything except the FCAT, what else do you require?
If they haven't passed their Florida Standards Assessment, then they will have to enter our English and math prep courses, and they will have to complete Creative Tech and Senior Projects to become NET certified when they leave our school.
Okay, and how many hours of credits would they be taking then?
Probably 4, at least 4.
Over one semester maybe?
4 credits.
In what period of time?
Depends on the student.
Well, if the retakes are in October and the student passes and then they just leave, I mean, I guess that's okay, right? Or do they have to complete it to get your diploma?
Well, when a student leaves a public school with a certificate of completion and they pass the exams, then they can go back to, say, Citrus High School, and Citrus High School can graduate them, and we're fully supportive of that.
Okay.
If the student does not want to do that, then they would have to stay, they would have to complete our requirements in order to get our diploma.
Are you also doing any ACT or SAT prep type
Absolutely.
work too?
Yes, we do.
Okay. How long has the school been in operation in Gainesville?
Since 2011 is when we opened the door there as a micro school.
Okay, and what's your success? What is your success rate as far as students who complete and earn a diploma, percentage-wise?
I graduated 55 students last year who were dropouts, who would have had no other alternative for a high school diploma in Alachua County but me. My federal, the 4-year cohort federal graduation rate last year was 27%.
Well, okay, but that's because, yeah.
That's because.
Yeah,
We don't.
Funny numbers.
We wanted the first number.
So you graduated 55 out of how many that should have finished that year? I mean,
Well,
in that
just for
group?
example, out of those 55 students, over half of them I did not get credit for because they had already missed their 4-year cohort, they had already missed their 5-year cohort, and so they were in their 6th year or perhaps 7th year as a senior, so I got no credit for those. So I have a whole span in my building of students who could be on track this year. I have cohort seniors this year, but I have 5th year, 6th year, 7th year seniors, and then I have those in my building who are really juniors.
Okay.
Our Jacksonville Micro School had 50 seniors last year, and she had 52 graduates last year.
Well, that's impressive,
So-
yeah. And what about behavior management? Is that an issue or not an issue?
Not an issue.
Really?
Not in Gainesville.
Not in Gainesville, not in Jacksonville.
Is it a situation where if they don't meet the, the code of conduct, then they're done?
I've not expelled, but in the 3 years that I've been there, I think there's only been 2, and that was for pot on campus. So that was a zero tolerance. But other than that, I don't get rid of it.
So that was a 7th grader, so he didn't care. So,
We don't do school better than you all do, because you guys are the best, but we don't have the discipline problems because we do an orientation the first week, we set our standards and expectations and we hold our students to it. And they want to be there. This is their last chance to get that high school diploma, so it's a different environment.
So can you paint the picture of the referral process from the base school to their school as far as our relationship? How will the relationship work?
Well, Ms. Baldry will have a relationship with us and also research accountability and also the high schools. So, again, when we get students coming to our school asking to come back in and they're 6th, 7th, 8th year, would be 6th, 7th, 8th year seniors, we'll certainly refer them over to micro schools.
So as far as
they'll do their own advertising and things like that.
Our current population, they're not going to be marketing to our current population in any way as far as the criteria to enter your facility would be based on students that have already moved through every possible alternative within our
We could
umbrella
have
service.
we could, and we do have seniors that have 3 or 4 credits instead of.
That would be ideal candidates.
Yes,
And we'll work
because
with-
they can't graduate taking 4
So
credits
then
a
our
semester.
administrative team would then
That's an option.
identify those at-risk kids and enroll them in that
Another
direction.
option.
Guidance, I'm assuming, would be involved in that. I mean, if we had a 5th-year senior right now going into their 2nd semester, and they're not on track to graduate, I would think that would be an ideal
We're not gonna
conversation.
work in competition with each other.
And there'll be
a lot
of that
The goal is to
dropout.
graduate.
So that was one of the questions
Right.
here, and your experience is that you haven't had that happen in your other school district.
Correct. We work very closely with the Student Services Division of Alachua County Schools. That's how our school began. It came from a direct inquiry from the Student Services. Dr. Goodman asked us to enroll one of his students that he could not get through and he could not leave in his schools. That student enrolled with us and then the floodgates opened. So there were, before we knew it, we had 20 students from the Student Services Division. We were graduating those students and they grew to 100 when we opened his school.
How are the student services, the ones in your school, say if they need help, social worker, guidance counselor, for problems, who services them?
Randy, you want to talk about your wraparound services this year?
Our whole strategic plan, our focus this year is retention, because we are serving a dropout prevention, or dropout population who weren't going to school to begin with, so now they're trying to come back to school. Well, we still experience the same problems from most of them that were in the traditional school, what you were talking about, attendance, and they've got work, they've got children, they have to get to school in the morning times and that kind of thing. So the whole part that we're working on this year is getting services in the building. I've got United Way in the building, UF Physicians has a free clinic mobile bus that's going to start parking on my campus on Fridays to meet the healthcare needs. The Early Learning Coalition is going to partner with us to try to get us some more direct line into available childcare. Meridian Healthcare, Behavioral and Mental Health Care is going to partner with us and start providing services to our students on campus. So we're working on the whole piece. We have a career specialist in the building that helps with guidance, and of course, our whole model is built on relationships. We are a relationship-driven model. So every student, every employee, not just a teacher, every teacher, all my employees are assigned students. Each one of them has 25 to 30 students that they are responsible for on a daily basis, whether they teach them or don't teach them. And if that child is not in school that day, by the time that teacher or my registrar or my administrative assistant, by the time they go to bed that night, they need to have found out why Johnny was not in school today. They need to make that attempt. And then if they do, it's good. If they talk to a parent, lots of times it's not a parent. Lots of times we call a parole officer and let them know that Johnny wasn't there. Or if Johnny comes back the next day, it is that teacher's responsibility to find Johnny, find out what happened yesterday. So we develop all these relationships in the school. Lots of times the students will find someone that they feel like they can trust and confide in. And that helps with keeping them there, the attendance. I mean, if you weren't going to school at all, none, and you're coming to me for 3 days a week, I'm happy for a while. I'm not satisfied, but 3 days a week is a big improvement. I want 5. And we just work that way the whole year. We have school uniforms, pants up, shirt tucked in, belt on. We have very few problems with that. I have no kids come to school out of uniform.
I
None.
met with a student the other day, and she's driving to Ocala because we do not have a program where we can meet her needs. And really, what this partnership will be is they're going to meet the needs of students. We can't meet the needs in our high schools.
Do your teachers come to train with the teachers?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes.
And salary-wise, since it's a public charter school, then the salary.
We match Citrus County salaries.
So, Ms. Baldry, are you going to take our teachers out of our school?
I certainly hope not. I believe there are plenty of qualified teachers out there that need jobs today.
Yeah.
As far as transportation, are we gonna be supplying the transportation like we do for the other public charter?
We've been working on transportation. We've got 3 different avenues right now. The first is the transit system. We're working with them. It depends on where our school's located and whether the students can meet the routes that they have, that one standard line. The other thing is I've met with a private contractor who's willing to give us a bid to actually transport students. And then our third option is we get transportation funding, we can pay parents to bring their student to school. And I think that's probably the best option, you know. You can tell a parent, you know, that we can pay you our bus money. If you'll bring your student to school, it will get the student there.
And your curriculum with the proficiency test, is that something that your company's developed, or is that something that is for a virtual school tool?
Our company has developed a curriculum called Contact. We've been using it in our school since 1998 very effectively. It's been aligned to the college standards.
And you're accredited, I'm so sorry. The accreditation, you are accredited through what organization?
Advanced Ed, we have both
Advanced Ed.
regional and corporate accreditation.
Okay, and that accreditation will take a student to next steps, whether it's vocationally driven as far as certifications or a degree of some sort. It's transferable.
Correct.
No one has 2 things. One about the ESE students, second about industry certification. Which areas of industry certification do you offer?
Currently, we're offering the Microsoft Specialist. We are offering like IC3, which is a lower level certification. We are running pilots. Randy is actually our pilot school this year. He's starting a career academy type annex of his own school. So we'll be adding more industry certifications as we go along. It really depends on the student need. We have the curriculum to support many different industry certifications, but we don't have the student need or request of it yet.
You're not going to have welding, in other words.
Oh, no, we're not going to have welding. We won't have vocational courses.
And then about the ESE population, how do you deal with the specialists that are needed to service the ESE population?
We do have a ESE teacher on staff, and many of our teachers are also ESE certified. We have to contract out for things like speech and language and other needs that the student might have. Our ESE population and graduation rate is better than our regular graduation rate because our program seems to fit the need of the ESE student. We had a 78% passing rate last year on the actual FCAT 2.0 in the math for our ESE students. Yes.
If this were to be approved today, how long would it take you to be moving?
We will open next school year.
Next
We will start moving tomorrow.
Who is Micro School? Who owns it? What's the nature of the organization?
Microschool is a 5013C, it's an independent school. We have an educational service provider named Newport. That is a California-based company. but they provide our education services, but our school will actually be a standalone entity, just like his school is a standalone, Jacksonville is separate, Pinellas is separate.
From what?
They're separate schools, they're standalone schools.
From
Their own
each other?
nonprofit organization, yes.
But you're still owned by the company in California?
Yes, sir.
Well,
We have a governing board.
Okay. So who will own this micro school in Citrus County? Someone has to own it or have some,
The board,
The board.
not you the board, but the
right,
board
you're
of
on
that
board.
school.
They create a 501c3
Okay.
nonprofit, their shares are,
Okay.
so then it's the board of directors who runs
Right.
the deal.
Sort of like
There's
the
the
academy.
CEO, so I think who's the CEO? Who's the one?
CEO of our educational service provider is Dr. Linda Dawson.
Okay, so she's basically the parent.
Yes, she's the
She's
brainchild of our organization.
And what was her name again?
Dr. Linda Dawson.
And so how do you set your finances then? Obviously, you have to collect the FTE. Then
Right.
how do you set teacher salary and administrative salary? What do you do with you if you have a profit? What do you do? I mean, how does this all
We're
work
a
financially?
nonprofit organization.
I know,
So
so-
everything that we earn goes back into our school. We either expand in staff, or we expand in curriculum, or we expand in needs of the students. So it's a nonprofit organization.
Okay, and you said that you were going to match the salary of the Citrus County instructional staff.
Correct.
Is that, so you're going to follow the same chart as follow years of experience and that sort of thing?
Yes, I sent the salary schedules to our HR director, who developed the salary schedules that went into our preliminary budget and defined how we would start the school.
Okay.
Our educational service provider provides the money up front for us to open the school and get started. We applied for the charter school grant. Hopefully we'll get that. If not, we'll pay them back as we move forward.
And then your administrative staff, how many administrators are you going to have on staff?
We just have one principal on staff.
And who's going to be the principal?
I will have to interview for that.
And Joy, what is your role here? What is your
I'm the
job
Director of Education Services for Florida.
for Florida? Okay, all right. So, well, and the reason why I ask that is that I'm sure you all are aware of all the different things that have happened with charter schools around Florida, including the one school that had the $300,000 payout for their principal when they closed. You know, we want to make sure that it's not a matter of you doing something wrong, it's a perception of what goes wrong in other districts and other counties gets fed back to, oh, this is a charter school, they're paying somebody $300,000 a year. You know how that
Correct.
works, so,
We do not work that way.
okay. So who governs that? I mean, you have your board that's gonna govern this particular school.
Our board of directors, our founding board currently is made up of myself, Chris Mallory, who's the chief instructional officer for the educational service provider, and then Tammy Hawker, who is a lead curriculum specialist for the state of Florida. As soon as our charter is approved, we will seek to establish a local board. That local board, just like you govern Citrus County schools, will govern our school. Our principal reports to our president or chair of the board, and our staff to our principal, but the principal also reports to me.
All right, so I'm still having a hard time with the structure. So you're a standalone school, you're independent, but yet you're contracting for your educational services with this entity from California.
Right.
That's how it works. So you're paying them for the curriculum and the education.
Franchise fee type
Right.
thing.
Okay,
HR, finance, they prepare our budgets and financial statements that they would send to y'all each month. And so y'all would get a monthly financial statement from our CFO. And so you will always know what our financial picture looks like at all times.
And you pay your teachers retirement and,
We participate in the Florida retirement system.
and I know on one page it says that your students are still Citrus County schools, students considered Citrus County school students.
Correct.
That no change on the
That's where a public charter.
So in the paper that we have, my school student gets in trouble, or Citrus County school.
your kids don't get in trouble. Did you hear that part?
Oh, I didn't say that we were in trouble. We said that we don't have discipline.
So this should make a positive impact on our direct outreach.
Mr. Bradshaw, today, can you just walk us through what we are now approving today, or what we would be approving today?
Well, I think Mr. Simon, you're approving the application.
The application or the committee, the review committee?
No, you are, and again, we did a backward design here, and we did that to welcome our guests so that you may have the opportunity to ask questions so that they can go back to the students that need them in their respective sites. But here's how this works. Joy Baldry submitted a letter of request to participate and submit an application for a charter school in Citrus County on June 1st, by June 1st. We then, by state statute, are required to review 19 elements clearly defined with specific criteria in order to determine whether or not that charter application meets state and district expectations. So a committee met to review 19 elements as defined by the state of Florida. Those 19 elements include almost every piece of what you talked about or questions you asked this morning, from the mission guiding principles to how students are recruited, to their funding, their payroll, how they will assess and evaluate performance, their curriculum, transportation, management, HR, supportive services, food, and their designed action plan. So the committee met. It was under the guidance, support, leadership of Karen Stofchek. If you look in the back of the room on the left, you will see the 11-inch notebook of documentation that Joy provided on a jump drive that, if it were in quantity instead of compressed digital, it could not fit in Attorney Bradshaw's pocket that we gave him today that is modified. So this was more of a collaborative process. Instead of a submission, closed door, we'll open it back up when we meet again, throughout this entire process, as defined by statute and by practices now, we kept in communication with Joy and Microschool in order to clearly understand and clarify, because in the process of her application, I think the state changed a good 10 to 20% of the components included in this document that she had to adjust, change, modify, update, some of which just changed on Friday that she can't keep up with. So that part of the process keeps all of us in check. Again, we look at it more collaboratively, more cooperatively, which is why she is here today.
So looking at the measure, the litmus test as far as measuring success, are we going to measure the success of this venture through monitoring dropout rates? Is that going to be the measurement of success? And are we doing an annual renewal process? Or once this is approved to move forward, is this set in stone?
I'm going to try to address all those multiple questions. They're good questions. So first of all,
what's the
measures. There are multiple measures. So alone, it could not be graduation rate. It could be, you heard Joy talk about persistence and the recruitment persistence, and the students stay with the program. Because it may take a student 3 to 4 years to finish before they meet that exit age requirement. So it could be persistence, it could be grades, it could be achievement on state assessments, it could be graduation rate, could be dropout rate. So any of those, I would encourage us to not use, and you heard an example of that, to not use the standard graduation formulas because it doesn't fit into this model.
Right.
So that's the first.
Here.
I agree.
So those are, so to be, to answer your question, multiple measures.
Well, we're looking at this because we're losing a population that they have the ability to serve. And that population we've got some numbers here, or we wouldn't be faced with this decision as a board. So we've identified that there is a need for this organization. So looking at the numbers that warrant the time spent today to review this process and the potential of this relationship, I guess understanding that we're going to have the annual review in front of the board, what will we be looking for? So whatever those measures are, I just want to plant those seeds that we want to be focused on measuring the impact and monitoring success. Whatever we want to use as a tool to define that is something that maybe we need to discuss.
As a charter school, public charter school, we're held to the same requirements as a regular school. So we have your BAM model. We have graduation rates, we have attendance rates, we have retention rates. We also have our own BAM model that's totally separate from yours because it's our desire to show that our program does work and it does impact. So we hire a statistician, a private one, to actually take our baseline and growth data and show the progress that we're making as well.
Something I think too that perhaps maybe clouding this a little bit. Mr. Simon, this is a very different charter than, say, our Academy of Environmental Science, where those charter students will graduate from Citrus County schools, one of the 3 high schools. This is a standalone school.
Correct. Our students, and we work carefully with Regina and our student services team to identify those processes such as transferring from Citrus County to or enrolling into. And you brought up the point earlier about will we be taking students from our current high schools. There may be a need to have students who may not meet a requirement or may not have opportunities or may not be able to attend the courses required from their standard high school. So there is a process where it will be a collaborative committee, Joy, microschool team, Regina, our district team, meeting together to almost like a student study team would, to identify what is the need, what are the gaps, where will that child best be served, and what educational plan will be an outcome from that meeting. So that's in place. So that, because our fear was this, our fear was that students may say, microschool is an easy way out, I have to do less work. Yeah, I have to do less work, I don't have to go to school, so let me go to microschool. So that, we hope that we have in place a plan that will address that to avoid that. The other issue, and again, I want to go back to those 19 elements, while we review them, not all of them would we say we would agree to 100%. For example, we'd enjoy, and our team have had this discussion, we may not see the same enrollment number that they see. We see it to be a smaller number based on our experience and data and the number of students who are not in school or who have dropped out. So we see that as a little bit different.
You're talking about their growth pattern projecting in the 5th year to be
Student recruitment enrollment, we see a little bit differently.
Excuse me, Mr. Simon, one second.
You know, I just want to add one more time. Joy and them are coming to our county to meet the need of kids we're not even serving.
Correct.
And, you know, and I know that every annual report that we bring back to the board, which we will do that annually, then we can review that and those types of things. But I think what we can't lose sight of, she's meeting the needs of kids we're not even serving. And when we talk about our high school students, we will always have kids look at that school thinking that's an easy way out. Because that student may or may not be thinking college now, but just thinking about career paths and those kind of things, so.
And Ms. Hamel, when you say we're not serving or can't serve, we're not able to. Not that we don't want to, we just don't have the program that you are. And I think what is unusual, and I can't believe I'm actually being encouraged about a charter school, because that's just not in my nature, is you seem to be trying to have a symbiotic relationship with us, working with us, but other charter school could come in, whether we liked it or not, and whether we denied it or not, they could still appeal to the state now, and we really could be out of the thing. So whether we saw a need or not, and in this case, it sounds like we're working together to establish a need or a helping of students. But if they were another private charter, they wanted to come in and we denied them, they could still go and probably become a charter somewhere in a process,
I
I'm
think
saying.
that's a strong piece of our model, and it's why I'm here today. You know, I started teaching in Citrus County in 1992. I grew up here, and when I left here,
We cried when she left.
when I left here, I left with the opportunity to find a program that could service those kids that I served here. You know, I always worked with those kids that were third year FCAT takers, you know, but I had good success. So I left here with a lot of great training and wonderful stuff, and then I went to Gainesville and I found this wonderful company out of Oceanside that shared my mission. Took that little school, became a model school with that little school in 2010, started an annex that became a model school under Randy Starling. So this is a good model, it's a solid model. And what we're looking for today is the opportunity to bring it back to Citrus County. You know, I've done a lot of research. You know, I think this model will help our kids here. And I'm not saying that you can't do it, because I know you guys, you know, I know Citrus County, it's in my blood. But there is a group of students that fall out, and we have a program that meets their needs. And that's just why I'm here today.
Let me ask you, 150 students is what you think will make it work? Or what if you only had 75 students, what would you?
Yeah,
do then?
our long-range goal is 150 students. Now, unfortunately, my charter, I didn't update that. So when you see the 5-year pattern, I don't think we'll ever be bigger than 150 students. If we reach that, it'll be wonderful.
But you can't operate with
we gotta
75.
75 to 100, you know, we're trying to hit the 100 so that we can be financially successful. And of course, I'm applying for every grant in the world that I can find to also help and bring more resources into the district, because I want this school to be successful more than any of them. So it's that important to me, and I'm that vested in it.
Thank you.
And before we bring closure, just to remind, and Mr. Kennedy, you brought this out, a charter school does not have to follow the same rules and they have to follow many, but not all the rules and regulations that we are compelled to follow. So there's some flexibility that they have that we do not have.
But they, as a public charter, they're still under
They're
the umbrella.
they're still under the state accountability, they're still under the federal, excuse me, the federal rules, the rules for IDEAs, PSE students, but overall, there's some other areas that they can flex and bend that we cannot. So here's how this goes. This charter is brought to you. The committee recommendation was to approve the micro school charter school for Citrus County. If you, as a board, agree to approve it, the next step would be, it is charged then to our attorney, Wes Bradshaw, to develop a contract. That contract is typically a collaborative process, and he has a clock ticking. So as soon as this approves, there's a clock that starts. It defines when and how this contract is to be done. It defines by charter state Florida statute the involvement and collaboration of the attorney for the charter school. And then it comes back, that plan comes back, contract and plan comes back to you to be approved.
Okay, so you're asking us today for a motion to approve the application, not to approve
The
the
recommendation.
school. What are you asking us for?
To improve the application.
Application.
And bring a contract back to the city.
All right, I'll move, that we approve the application submitted by Micro School Citrus and move forward with the development of contract.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Deutschman, a second by Ms. Powers, to approve the recommendation of the Charter School Review Committee for
That's
the,
not what I said.
oh, I'm sorry,
I said my motion was to
Yeah.
approve the application.
to approve the application and move forward with Mr. Bradshaw developing a contract. I just want to make sure I got that, I'm sorry. Any further discussion, comment?
With that, is there, when you're exploring that, the cost to Citrus County for any portion of this, whether it's calculated in the loss of students with FTE, at this point, I'm not seeing any cost at all.
There are no costs. Pay
We
the
will not
district,
incur any cost at all to be in this relationship.
and we pay
Okay.
the district 5% of our FTE.
And you will pay the district 5% of the FTE, and that 5% will get you accounting services?
You will monitor our school.
Okay.
That 5% by statute requires us to maintain their student enrollment, their student data, and our
Basically,
student data
data
management
services.
system to submit that to DOE and other indirect services.
Excuse me, Mr. Blocker.
This is not going to be like the current AES job.
Okay.
We do all their applications and processes, hiring staff.
Right, so we'll,
They'll be responsible for it.
And 5% is standard. That's standard. I just have one more question, and this may be a question, maybe even Mr. Bishop knows this. So you all participate in FRS. Does that preclude any teacher who has just retired from the school system to not be able to work for you for that 1 year, just like a public school or any other public
Correct. We're held to the
entity?
same rules that
Well, that's a shame. We have some really good teachers.
It's really good.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I just have to say, I can't believe I'm going to vote for a charter school But I have to say thank you, Ms. Deutschman. I am excited about this, but I really want to tell you how much I appreciate you working with our staff to try and build a model that's going to be what's best for students. And I am intrigued and excited to see where this is going to go.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Good luck.
Thank you for coming.
I really want to run around there and hug you all, but I won't.
Okay, we're going to go back to school operations. Item A, approve district digital classroom plan. Dr. Gaddis.
Good morning. I'm sorry I was MIA earlier. I was in the bullpen warming up. I didn't get the call actually. But. So anyway, I'm here to talk about digital classroom plan. I do have a very brief PowerPoint to walk us through this. 5 slides. Basically, the state of Florida came up with a sum of money this year to help support school districts with technology integration. And so it's roughly $42 million spread among 67 counties, school districts, and they did it in a very equitable manner. They gave every district from Miami-Dade County to Baker County the same amount of money, $250,000. So it will help some more than others, but it is what it is. And so they were really, it was one of those things, they were trying to cover a lot of bases in the legislation. And so I've got highlighted up there just the underlined portions. Focus on digital learning implementation and improvement of student performance outcomes. And so with that guidance, they have 5 different elements that you could address. You didn't have to address all of them. And that includes measurable student performance outcomes, digital learning and technology infrastructure, professional development, digital tools, online assessments. And of course, in the application itself, there was a great deal of information on each of those areas and guidance if you wanted to participate. So what we pulled a big team together of our curriculum leadership, our research and accountability leadership, technology leadership, executive leadership, vocational, and some school representatives. And I don't know if is that an application in your packet? It's got a lot of detail in there. You don't have to, if you want to go look at and see who was involved, it's there. But basically, in terms of performance outcomes, with some, just looking at our numbers and what we wanted to focus on, we've chosen to increase performance of 5th grade English language arts in Florida student assessment, and increase performance of students in Algebra 1 as measured by Florida Standard Assessment. And we have the baseline and target there for you. Now, in terms of practicality, how...
Hold on one second.
Yes. I'm sorry.
So what led you to think that we would have 5% or greater increase in student performance on those measurements? Has that been our trend, number one? And number two, we don't have a trend because we never had this standard. So what is that based on?
And I'm not the best one to answer that question. I'll have to defer to Mr. Simon.
Okay, Mrs. Deutschman, so this is the close your eyes and aim for the dartboard. So what our trend has been for the last 7 years, a continuous improvement district-wide of multiple points in proficiency. So in discussion of what do we, because the question you asked begs, what have we done with all of our school plans when we transition from one type of standards and assessment to one brand new that we've not even seen, that the state hasn't. So we established targets that were ambitious, yet reflected that pattern of growth that we've had since 2006.
But we haven't gone up 5% every year since 2006 in some of these areas.
Not,
It would have been at 30 or 40%.
not in some. And when we set these targets, we talked about sustaining or maintaining or improving. So again, the target isn't compelling us to meet that goal. However, we set it high. We could have said 66%, we could have said 67% for fifth grade in terms of language arts.
So if we don't meet these targets, what's the downside? There's none?
There isn't a downside. So if I can step back to kind of guide what Dr. Geddes is presenting. So here's how it goes, and I beg my informality. The state of Florida says we know it's going to take a great deal of technology to pull off all the assessments that we are requiring you to administer, not just in terms of technology, but all the infrastructure related to that technology. And the fact that we may not have enough money to do that, we're offering you, every district, regardless of your size, Miami multiple 100,000, Citrus 15,000, we're offering every district $250,000. You must write a grant in order to earn that $250,000. But our hope is that you can use that money to put in place systems to build that infrastructure and technology needs to administer these assessments. So that's it. And again, God bless Dr. Geddes to build this plan with great effort, and there really is an amount of money, in my opinion, editorializing that should be been provided to every school just to meet the intent of this transition to new assessment.
So was one of the goals not increasing student performance, but the number of tests that we're able to administer would increase? Was that also something that was one of the options?
Yes, and basically our increase our capacity to test X number of students in a given time frame. I'm going to, without taking too much time, I hope.
And while you're doing that, Dr. Geddes, and Mr. Simon, when we talk about that it was also given to each district regardless of size or need, there are districts that have a greater need or have less resources than other districts. That was not taken into consideration either. So, you know, Miami-Dade may be able to afford or may have already had an infrastructure necessary, I'm not saying they do, but that's an example, where Levy County desperately is in need because they don't have that infrastructure in place. That's not taken into consideration. So I'm editorializing as well, but I wanted to make that clear.
Okay. What we wanted to show you very quickly, first of all, there's a Florida Standards Assessment site, and we're going to pull up a document on that site. It's a couple different places that shows the state's transition to computer-based testing. And I know it's probably not a surprise to you, but it's kind of astounding. And so basically, thank you for your patience. And so you can see the year on top, 2014-15, and then grades 3 and 4 are paper-based tests, PBT, but you can see, moving on down the list, that just about everything else is computer-based test.
Secondary question, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Computer-based tests, these that we're looking at, will a person be able to say, well, question number 4, let me think about that, I'll go on to question number, are you not able to do that? Once you pass question number 4, you can't ever return?
So these are dynamically designed digital assessments that have multiple tools that enable students to mark to say, I want to come back to this one. They can mark and say, I think it's A, I can code it that way, and then code to come back. There are tools built into it. So what is interesting about this computer-based assessment is that the new ones will have all of the, for the most part, a great number of tools that we only provided to digital tools to students with disabilities under the umbrella of accommodations are going to be provided for all students, Mrs. Powers. So that's out of all this that can be viewed as negative, that's a pretty good positive.
That is because originally you could not, you know, you just
correct.
Keep going, you know.
So they'll be, the accommodations would probably be more egregious or more needy for those students that will be these. So as Mike presents this, Dr. Geddes presents it, you'll see, I think the challenge is the quantity.
The quantity of tests?
Yes, and the point of sharing this document with you is just to illustrate, you can see the green gets larger year by year. And so there's a continued and growing emphasis on computer-based testing, which really places some stress and demand on our technology infrastructure to be able to provide that. And so I shared that to just share the...
Hold on one second,
Yes.
Dr. Geddes.
Can you send us a copy of that?
Sure.
That's not in our
Sure.
packet.
We'll do that.
I still have a question on page 7 though, before we move on.
Oh, page 7 of the
Don't
grant?
be in a hurry, we're okay, we're here all day,
Okay.
nothing else to do. How do you tie, and this has been an ongoing question, Mr. Geddes, how do you tie the use of technology to increases in student performance? How do you segregate that and quantify that? Because I think that's been an ongoing issue over the years, like the class size amendment also. Well, okay, but how do we tie that directly to increases in student performance to see if we're on the right track? Is that the best return on our money? Is this the best use of technology? Is technology going to increase student performance? Because if it's not, we need to know that. How do we segregate that?
You can't.
So-
That's been attempted for 30 years. There's not a direct correlation. I think people would like...
It's great wisdom that all of our tests and all of our curriculum and all of our instruction material are going to digital with absolutely no understanding that there's a connection between that
Well,
and increasing
I think the
performance.
argument would be made that the world we live in is digital. And so, you know, this
That's
doesn't...
not how we're hardwired brained in our learning. You know, it's funny, I just read an article, and I know this to be true, because I'm one of those that if I handwrite a note, I will learn it. If I type it or I
Right, without
highlight
question,
it,
yeah.
I don't learn it. I learned that in college, that I had to take my notes and rewrite my notes and write my notes from my textbook. And that's the only way that I retain information. So the physicality of typing doesn't have that connection.
You know,
And I would largely agree, but I will tell you as an LD, typing for me is how they've found I learned and remembered. But that's me, but I don't disagree that it takes away
But that
from that.
acknowledges
So I agree.
different learning styles.
Yes.
Here, we're not acknowledging.
No, we only said there's one.
Everybody
In the classroom.
yeah, I would certainly like to see the brakes applied a little bit on this rapid path we're on. And I just found an article yesterday from the Florida Times Union in Jacksonville about, had representatives from Duval County as well as St. Johns County quoted in there, and talking about how this is going to impact kids. This elementary students now being required to use keyboards to write essay-type responses when all they've done in the past has been paper, and your brain does function differently. You think differently, and so we're going to have to prepare our students, to that end, because it is going to be different. And so some of the critics say, now we're not just testing students on English language arts and writing, we're testing them on keyboarding skills that they may or may not have, which could be a penalty for them academically. So,
And Dr. Geddes, I do think that's important because this year, our fifth graders, the assumption is they are proficient in the skill of their mind typing those stories. We're not talking about kindergartners that we can start keyboarding and then learning that thinking process, as Ms. Deutschman is saying, and as you've talked about, where it's pencil to thought, or keyboard to thought. Our fifth graders, the assumption is around the state that they know how to do it, and they're going to be able to demonstrate that. And I just want to make it clear, I don't believe that that's going to happen, and I believe that sadly, irregardless, here's the sad part, what our teachers have taught our students and our students have learned will not be measured on this computer-based test.
Well, the other issue, I was at elementary school the other day, and they were talking about the concern that, and we all rely on those helps that jump up, and there's more of them. In fact, I'm the new iOS 8.
Oh, yeah.
Now you have all the words to all choose from that are spelling. That those helps, the spell check, the formatting, and all that automatically happens when you're using Word,
will not be available on Yesing. And so students who have become used to having it automatically capitalized and all that may not be able to figure out how to do that or waste a lot of time doing something that the computer's always done for them instead. So it's not a real,
It's not a direct.
it's not a pathway that
right.
follows to, okay, you have all these keyboarding skills, you know how to do this, now you can do this test. Because it's not. It's like teaching someone how to write and then you don't have a pencil anymore. You have to take the test some other way.
If you're handwriting a draft, there's something nice about being able to cross a word out, write another word next.
Well, and it's back to the elementary level as far as the different things that they're required to teach anyway. And I know that they have to teach keyboarding skills, and the keyboarding skills need to be consistent with the expectation of at the high school level, so that there's not a concern about skills developed that are incorrect. So with that said, even looking at it from what the perspective is, I know that
Do we care how they hold their pencil?
we've
I would disagree. I think that we've taught for years that we don't care how they get there as long as they get there. With the keyboarding, if they want to use their fingers to do it, and they can do it and get that information out just as fast, I don't care how they do it.
Pencil, you know, as far as splitting hairs on skill development, I certainly care how students hold their pencil, definitely.
I would disagree that I hope we're not teaching kids how to hold their pencil, and we really don't care about that. We care about the information.
Well, we certainly do. However, in order to convey information, you have to have the skill development in order to do that. That relates to speaking skills, it relates to handwritten skills, typing skills, and that's all a foundation of instruction that takes place in the classroom. And looking at the goals that you have today before us, trying to drive an understanding with the board of where that $250,000 will be spent. I'm looking, I definitely see your goals, the increments of your goals. I understand with Mr. Simon's blind, put the blinder on and pick the target. I understand every bit of the pressure that you have as a staff to do these numbers.
And you're going to see that pretty much our focus is on the online assessment piece. I was going to tell you quickly, I took typing in high school, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm never going to use this in my life. And we had manual typewriters, except on the very back row, and there was some electrics there. So every once in a while, you got to use the electric typewriters, and here we use typing every day, and I'm a pretty proficient touch typist.
I think I've seen you use your fingers too, by the way, Dr. Gaines.
And my typing teacher's name, of all things, was Miss Hand, H-A-N-D. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so in terms of allocations, we had some good discussions about, how these funds could be used. To be honest, $250,000, even for a district our size, is not a lot of money in terms of addressing the overall need. I'm pleased to say that our wireless infrastructure we feel like is in good shape. We're in good shape in a lot of areas, but we chose in kind of following the guidelines that we were provided to use, this is our budget, $95,000 performance matters, a quantity of headphones for testing purposes, a quantity of keyboards for testing purposes to use with our iPads. And I actually brought one to kind of show and tell, so you can take this and pass it around. It's a Bluetooth keyboard, cost about $20 actually, and it works with our iPads. And
you know what I just discovered about mine? I didn't have the right cord, I couldn't charge it up, and then it's dead.
yeah, these purposely have used batteries, so that was part of our criteria because we couldn't do all this USB charging. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just looking at the growth in skill development, understanding that keyboarding used to be at the 4th grade level in the introductory phase, and we're going to have to back that down to make sure those kids are ready for that 5th grade time to test. Considering the size of their hands at the elementary level and the spread of their fingers, and again looking at those strategies for teaching proper keyboarding, because in order to do that they can build their speed. Do we have keyboards that we've looked at that will fit those 3rd grade hands?
No, I mean, that's a smaller keyboard than a computer keyboard. if you were to compare.
Oh,
So,
you're right, it definitely is.
yeah. So, no, we haven't,
Small pianos.
small guitars, yeah, they make.
Well, and the problem is the testing hardware requirements don't dictate a different size for a different student level. So that's what they're gonna have to have.
I think that's probably,
This is gonna be
That would-
what
that
they
would
will
be it.
use. So they'll be able to use this during instruction to build those skills.
correct, yeah.
And the expectation, if I recall, still is not to learn the home row. That is not part of Common Core, that's not part of any type of expectation of learning.
The more,
Yeah, it does not matter how they type it.
it's a QWERTY.
Well, the goal is speed and accuracy.
Speed is not part of it.
They're not
It's
timed
part
out.
of,
This isn't a
of
time
learning.
test, this fifth grade writing assessment's not timed, it's unlimited.
No, I think it's timed.
No, but it does, but that's saying then that we taught our kids how to write so many words in a minute. We don't do that. We don't teach writing by speed either.
Well, they still have to complete their assessment,
Right, but we don't care how they get to that point, as long as they get to that point. So whether, again, they hand peck it or whether they use a home row traditional keystroke, all that we care about is that they can accomplish that. That's the goal, is not to teach them to do it all the same way. In fact, I think every expectation is individual learning styles.
So what I hear you saying is you don't want Miss Hand to come and put.
I don't want Miss Hand doing that, and I don't think that's the expectation. That's right.
So you didn't know what they were, so when
You're
you
right.
typed, you had to get it right from your
Well,
training.
then, yeah, I think it
But
goes
there
back
is
to
a
what
problem with the time though, because the person
There's a problem with all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the person who is just learning the keyboard cannot type as fast as the person who's already learning.
Right.
So there is a problem, so the test being timed
Yeah,
is.
Until you reach a level of proficiency in anything, it's a stumbling
Absolutely.
block, unfortunately, and
Think
so.
about a kid who's moving here from someplace else that never had a computer in their life, and they walk into third grade and they have to type an essay. Or a kid who comes from another country that doesn't use the QWERTY keyboard, they
That's
use
right.
the Dvorak keyboard. Like, my son went to Italy, and he says, I think the keyboards must be in Italian because I can't type on them.
When they have the
Kids are all
ability
in
to
a
switch
different
the
place.
keyboard within the system.
And you probably know then, typically,
You're right.
as those written responses were graded, you know, at the state level, they had like 2 readers.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know, now they're gonna have 1 human reader and 1 computer reader. And something I read says, the computer readers are almost as good as human readers now. So that's part of this whole thing, you know, is this automation and, anyway.
So why is $95,000 on Performance Matters? We already have Performance Matters, so you're just taking part of this budget and just moving it all on your decals.
Okay, that was very funny.
No, it's funny when you guys pop up. I
Well,
love this
I got it. We actually made a shift a couple of years ago in order to find the funding source for Performance Matters. It's very important, it's embedded in our system, but our Title VI funds, I think, as I've shared with you, are no longer allowable for Citrus County. You know, there's dependent upon, it is the rural grant, yes ma'am. And so therefore, we will not have that for this year to pay for next year's item.
So this $250,000 was a one-year grant. So you're gonna use, is $95,000 100% of Performance Matters funding?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the plan for next year? Hope somebody else sends us more money?
I will go to Mr. Blocker, as we have done, as we were planning on doing this year, and start to look for what funds we have internally that we could actually pay for Performance Matters. Again, assessing it's still applicable, but you'll see through this, and I had a concern about this, this group knows that. I really wanted the impact to be really concrete in that classroom. But if you look at the criteria of that application, it does actually really address how we are monitoring our students' performance.
But it's how we have been. It isn't anything new and additional. So we're getting new money and we're spending it on ongoing expenses. Is that really the intent of this grant?
I'll just share that part of the grant, digital tools, district shall continue to implement, it doesn't say start, continue to implement and support a digital tools system that assists district instructional personnel and staff in the management, assessment, and monitoring of student learning and performance. And that's exactly what Performance Matters does.
But it's a recurring expense we've had for
It
many
is a
years.
recurring
It's not
expense.
anything new
No, I would
in
agree.
addition to enhance or improve our digital assessment or tools or technology or.
Yeah, and the point is, should we find another source to fund Performance Matters, we'll use that $95,000 for something else.
What else could you have, what else would you have liked to have included in it if you didn't have to pay?
I would probably purchase more infrastructure to support the testing, online assessment requirements. One of the big challenges that I'll share on here, and we really need more, but again, it's a recurring cost, is this bandwidth. The need continues to grow. And so we, on a daily basis, monitor our internet circuit. On a daily basis, we monitor the traffic that goes from our schools to our district network. And we're beginning now to see with the explosion of devices out there, that traffic between schools on our network is beginning to become saturated and become an issue. And so that's why we're suggesting we use $8,400 hesitantly, because it's a recurring cost. Once you make that commitment to increase that bandwidth, that's going to be $8,400 we have to come up with next year. But we really feel like we need to go from 100 to 200 megabits in our middle schools, simply because of all the devices there, and we're seeing that pipe get full. So.
And what about the testing at the high school level? Is that going to be impacted by, how much, what's our bandwidth at the high school?
200 currently,
Right.
200 in WTI are currently 200 megabits.
And elementary school?
100.
Dr. Geddes, one of the things, and I know it's not on here, but as we continue to add these, personnel to manage all of this. I mean, that's just really a huge undertaking. You've got 2,200 keyboards, which represent 2,200 units. I know further down the list, we show our infrastructural needs of student to computer device. Are we stretched where we, I mean, it's to me one of the recurring issues that we keep adding and adding. But we've got needs now at the schools that well go beyond what our staffing shows.
Yeah, I think that's going to continue to be an ongoing challenge, because at the same time, these technology requirements are increasing. Our student population is decreasing, FTEs decreasing, and our funding from the state, is either staying the same or decreasing. So generally, that's what salaries are paid out of, the general fund. So I think it's just going to take some creative thinking on our part to see what we can give up to, provide that technology.
Can we use up all of our wishes with the genie?
So no question, it's an ongoing challenge, but we've been running lean for quite a while, and we think we can continue to do that for a bit.
On the last page, there's a charter school participation clause here.
Yes.
So it says that we have one charter school, and we're going to share some of these resources with the charter school. Now, if we have two charter schools, are we going to have to share those same resources with both?
I would think it would be the school that's in place at the time we make the application,
Well,
so.
all right, but going forward.
No, next year then we would,
So we're going to have to spread our resources even more thin for our 5% return from our charter school. How does this work, on a pro rata basis, or how do you determine what percentage of the resources go to the charter schools?
well, we calculated, you can calculate based on numbers of students, and then just do a, kind of a prorated amount. We're just going to try to do in-kind services and support for AES.
What does that mean?
Dr. Geddes, may I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
I'm not sure about that piece, because the AES is set up as a public charter, but they are not a true charter as the new micro school would be.
Well, we're the
They don't
charter
have-
board.
They're a district charter.
Right.
They're a district
Right.
charter.
They don't have
Because,
autonomy when
you know, regular charter state defines is that there's that we're the pass-through, that they get 95%, we keep 5%, and they pay for everything else. Unlike, because the AES, we provide a lot of funding for them, that's not in the other charters. So
Maybe they'll get their own money.
So that's what, yeah, because they do.
So how it would translate, well, I'm sure provide them some keyboards for testing.
They'll probably put them under schools get $250,000. Because we want to be equitable.
Well, that is our digital classrooms plan. This year, it needed to be submitted to the state by October 1st, very kind of quick, short timeline. Next year and years thereafter, it will be due to them, I believe, April the 1st. So.
Like, so this is gonna be on?
Yes, ma'am. They say it's going to be ongoing.
How much money?
Not the money, just the report.
Don't know how much we're getting next year.
Yeah, that's it.
I move to approve the district digital classroom plan.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wait a minute. I have a motion by Ms. Bryant. Who is the second? A second by Ms. Balfour to approve the district digital classroom plan. Any more discussion?
I just had a question on page 21, BX, where it says purchase and implement 100 new student laptop devices, and it has an estimated cost of $6,000.
That's just an example that they provided, the state provided,
They failed
to
that.
show you how to complete the, we didn't put those numbers there, that was already there.
Oh, them too, well, that's a good figure.
That's that fuzzy math.
That's $60.
Dr. Geddes,
About 10 years ago, I had a friend that was taking a test on the computer at the University of Florida. She was a nursing student. And she told me that once she answered the question, it disappeared. And I said, oh my goodness, I couldn't take that test. I couldn't work the computer anyway, but I couldn't take that test because I've got to check off and go back and rethink everything. Just disappeared. But she said, in nursing, you sometimes just have a split second. I said, well, all right, fine. You like it, go with it.
That would be frustrating.
That
Anybody
would be for
remember the
me.
blue books?
Yeah.
I remember from my master's, we had to do a finals thing and my hand was so tired.
So, Dr. Geddes, I'm just going on the record saying I'll vote to approve this, but I really wish that we had not had the performance matters finding for
Okay.
the grant, because it's good money, and I think the intent is to develop additional things that we need to make our digital classrooms and our instructional material and our testing work better, rather than ongoing expenses that we've always had, so.
And
And I was gonna bring that up. If we can find another source for that, and then he can put something else in there, we'll certainly look at that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I agree with you, Mr. Richmond, if at all possible, I'd like to see us continue to do that as well. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Geddes. Thank you. We will move on to approve the 2014-2015 district testing calendar for Citrus County Schools. Good morning, Ms. Crowell.
Good morning. Okay, yes, I'm here to present our 2014-15 most revised testing calendar. We all know that because of Senate Bill 1642, we are required that every school board approve the district test calendar, that it addresses federal, state, and district mandates. You'll see that the tests all listed on this calendar are all mandated and required for us to either offer or administer. The schedule must include tests that serve multiple different purposes. And 4 different purposes is how we outlined it. 1, that they guide instruction, probably the most important, that they guide instruction like our FAIR-FS does. That they evaluate student success, like our course finals and CELA and things like that. And evaluate teacher success, like our elementary data source pre and post test. Or a combination of these purposes, like our FCAT, FSA, or EOCs. When you look at the calendar, you'll see that, of course, we have the dates that they are administered, the description. There's a section that says abbreviation. Once this testing calendar is approved, it will be posted on our district website, and those will become hyperlinks. So when anyone clicks on it, they will be then taken to a page where it'll give a brief synopsis and more of a description of what each one of those tests are. Then, of course, the participants. And then that last column, very important column, they're telling you who mandates that test, or the administration of that specific test. You will see that it's either mandated nationally or federally, which, could mean it's linked to Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind. It could be state mandated or district. Please notice, though, that the district alone is not requiring any tests on this calendar. All of these tests that we are administering stem from either a different kind of mandate besides the district. So all of these tests really kind of,
Can you expand on that just a little bit more?
Sure. When you look at that last column, there are no tests that say just district, meaning our district is only requiring this test. Every test on here is basically outside of our district control, and we are needing to administer it by mandate outside of our.
So let's say the fair as an example, because that's the first one down there.
Correct.
If we said as a district we didn't want it, does that mean we don't have to do any tests?
We would be breaking statute. We would not be following mandate. It'd be outside, right?
And
What would happen? Well, I mean, I know.
we don't want to be Lee County, so what would happen?
Correct. We would then have to possibly, we would be getting funding, we would probably lose funding outside of that. We would have to, I know like Lee County, I think just went back on it though. They are not following through with it because of the different ramifications that could happen. But I know one of the biggest pieces would be the funding.
So you could choose a different assessment.
Oh, good, so we can spend more money and
You
time.
could spend more money, you can have a review of that assessment to make sure it meets state requirements. You then submit that to the state to say this is what we're choosing, the state approves or disapproves it. So again, is it an option? Yes. Is it a viable option? In my opinion, again, no.
Ms. Balfour, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Thank you. No, I'm thinking, but and this may be premature as far as motions and discussion. I see the value in posting this tool that gives us a snapshot from our perspective of what's happening district-wide. And I'm looking at who's going to access the information as far as others that go to our website. Can we develop the hyperlink or some sort of an additional tool? So let's say the parent of an elementary school student, or I've got a third grader, what will my third grader be responsible for? Is there any way without a ton of money invested in this to just answer the question, I'm a parent of a third grader, what tests will they have? Because it does look overwhelming, and it does look like the kids are getting tested to death. But if we break it down, even by grade level, at least that gives a parent.
Correct, and we have
something that
definitely
they can
provided
digest.
materials to each elementary school, for example, and each school where they are communicating to the parents, whether it be at their, at their open houses or even their websites. But yes, but their open houses, their curriculum nights, where they are outlining just your third grader and just your fourth grader and just your fifth grader, what they are going to be responsible for testing.
Websites at the individual schools have
Absolutely.
that targeted information.
That's such a good point, because I clearly see, Mrs. Balfour, the need. I just have a third grade kid. This is killing me. So in our state assessment, when you click there, you have the option to say, I just want to look at third grade. And that in itself is overwhelming. My worry would be if we did those 2 pages by the grade level, my third grader's quitting school. Because it is, when you look at it, you go down that list, I can tell you fair assessment is going to be involved. But I would say probably for third grade, about 50% of what's on there will be third grade. So we could do that. I will say to you that and I absolutely admire, love, boast of the parent guide that our district prints, the calendar. That does it clearly by grade level with a calendar that says when it's given. So that's probably the best tool when you see it on the web, and we can do that. We've already done it for state assessments. We can go
We've
back.
already done it in the past, we have that done.
Right, it's by state assessment. It doesn't include all of the other, I would call secondary assessments or the formative assessments or the diagnostic assessments that we are required to administer. We haven't done that by grade.
But we provide the parent guide, we provide 2 curriculum nights for every school. And then they've also got, resources at their schools on their website, so.
Thank you.
So it is being done.
Thank you.
Where's the end of course exams for the, not Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, what are those called?
They're called end of term
ETEs.
EOTs.
Where are they?
EOTs.
If you go to the back, where it says, in the middle of the page, district assessments for end of term / data source. First 9 weeks, second 9 weeks. You see that third 9 weeks right in the middle of the page?
This page?
Yep, you're looking at that side. If you look in the middle where it says district assessments for end of term.
That wasn't included in your other, okay, got it,
Right.
sorry.
No problem. And so then that breaks down to for those middle schools and high schools who have those courses that are not state tested courses, when those would be given. And we call those end of term exams so that they are different than those end of course exams. One last thing that I wanted to make note of, if you look at the bottom of the back of the page where it says notes, the following students in all schools must participate in the FAIR FS. Please know that our K through 2, I'm sure you are aware, is currently on hold for FAIR and will remain on hold until instructed differently. Just so that I didn't know if you were aware of that. I know that it was state news that our K through 2 did stop testing, so we will not have that data, and we are looking at other avenues of getting data for our K through 2 students instead.
So let's just go back to the Lee County issue, because that was a very hot topic and continues to be a hot topic throughout the state. It's a good time to talk about that. Lee County didn't vote not to approve the calendar. Lee County voted to opt out, or to provide an opt-out option, and there isn't one. The only opt-out option, as far as I know, is third grade portfolio in lieu of an FCAT reading test for third grade promotion. But doesn't that have to be decided at the very beginning of the school year that the teacher will keep or make that portfolio, because not all students have a portfolio?
All of our third graders, our teachers do a portfolio for all third graders, so that way if they are, it's that backup, especially
Those waivers are decided at the end of the school year.
at the end of the school year after we receive their scores.
If I recall, there were some students who didn't qualify because they didn't have the portfolio already in place. Maybe it's not us, it might be other school districts that hadn't done that. Not in Citrus County.
Students are offered the opportunity to do a portfolio. Whether or not they can meet the requirements of the portfolio doesn't mean, just because we say, Ms. Deutschman, do this portfolio, and we're going to promote you. If you can't read the passages and do the work, then we can't promote you.
But if a student doesn't pass the FCAT and says, now I want to be able to be promoted via my portfolio, and didn't have a portfolio in place,
It wouldn't be because they didn't have one in place, it would be because the child was unable to complete it. They were offered the opportunities to complete the portfolio, but again, that kind of even supports even more so why the child probably didn't pass FCAT, like they correlate.
And a portfolio is basically documenting the standards that they have to know and be able to do and it was on the FCAT. Now, with the new assessment, once we know what they want us to do for the portfolio, we'll offer that. We don't have that available yet. We're supposed to know that soon, and our requirement beginning last year was every third grade student would be given the option of doing a portfolio. We would say,
so that's just last year then?
in this district. We said we are going to require every student to go through it. Now, if we offer you 3 times for, say, standard 1, and you miss every one of them, then you can't be promoted. We've given you some options, some assessment pieces to see if you can do it in your portfolio, but we're not going to say 10, 15 times. We only have a certain number of documents available to us.
Mr. Hebert, before the last year, and maybe that's also what, because I was thinking the same thing as Ms. Deutschman, if you were kind of an at-risk or we thought you would perform, that's when, though, that would start of building a portfolio. If you had an anomaly where someone, let's say you didn't anticipate?
I will tell you, that was really school-based decisions. Some schools opted to say every student is offered that, and some schools said, we'll kind of say these students are on the cusp, but maybe not, so we'll offer that. When I took over in this position, I felt that all students should have that option just to have a safeguard in place, so we required that as of last year.
Thank you.
So I think what happened with Lee County is they were a little misguided in thinking that they could offer anybody an opt-out provision for any test at any grade level without any repercussions. And we all know the state of Florida put in place all of the negative consequences for not testing way before they kept increasing it, including the 95% mandate that students have to be tested and all that. Somehow, I don't know how they got loose and didn't understand
what was really gonna happen. And then the one school board member, I guess someone sat them down and said, you can't do this, and so change. But there is a growing movement in Florida, we need to be aware of it, there is a growing movement in Florida led by a parent organization out of Orlando called Opt Out Florida. And they want to have boycotting, opting out of all testing by all students, which means you keep your student home during those 2 weeks of FCAT. When they come back, you don't allow them to do the makeup test. Now, I don't think that we have any of those things going on here, but I think we really need to be aware of them. And I think our schools need to be aware when they talk to parents of why we don't, the state of Florida doesn't give us an opt-out provision. We have, you can't just go into the principal's office. A school board member from Seminole County told a group of 300 parents, I was sitting on the stage with him and said, just go tell the principal your kid's not going to take the test. That's right. You can't do that. The principal's not going to do that. So I think it might be a good opportunity to go back and revisit some of those testing requirements, because I think we're going to see more challenges, and I think if we start to see, especially on this new test, students that are not being promoted, and then, you know, I applaud the pushback on testing, I really do. But I think we need to understand what the parameters are and have good understanding of what we can and cannot do, and tell parents.
Communicate that awareness.
This is, if your student isn't tested, they're going to be presumed to have failed it, correct? And they have to go through the remediation or the retention, is my understanding.
If they did not complete the,
If they didn't take the test at all.
they would then, for making, you mean, and they do makeups? They would then, are you talking about a third grader?
Any of the grade, third grade, yes, but even end of course exam.
If they
ninth
completed the
grade,
course but didn't take the exam, they would then be able to do it during retakes. Do you understand? Just so that they didn't,
They don't want to take they're not taking, I'm not
then yes, they would.
taking the test, not taking.
And Ms. Deutschman, we had a situation at one of our middle schools this year where that was the very case. Although the parent, I don't think actually verbalized it, it was clear, or it was, I think, clear that there was an intent that they were trying to do that. They did it in 7th grade, came back in the 8th grade year. And I know Mr. Clotter had to get involved with that. The problem was they passed the class. And they had to then take during retakes, or they weren't going to pass middle school. And I think that became the dilemma that the parent then becomes in, is if you're going to complete public school 8th grade or middle school, you're going to have to do that. Is that correct, Mr. Clark? Yeah. So that you're right, Ms. Deutschman. It's problematic.
Well, I think also that our schools need to inform our parents, because I really believe if this group gets traction, and I hope they do, because they're getting the attention of legislators. Obviously, the teacher from Alachua County who wrote that long-winded letter about what was wrong with FAIR, I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but voila, 2 days later, no more FAIR testing. So, you know, civil disobedience does have its place, and I do like the idea of parents speaking out against this oppressive number of tests their kids may take. But in the meantime, I think we need to be prepared, because you may see a very large movement for boycotting testing, and then we just have to figure out how we're going to respond to that and make sure that people understand what the consequences are. So that's.
We don't talk about portfolios, and there isn't a rule in place right now here. What would it cover when you put the rule in place? Which tests would this cover?
Portfolio? The third grade portfolio, normally they begin in January, is the normal practice, because the level of reading text that they are being tested on are at a 3.5 or higher level. So normally that is why they begin in January, but it's an ongoing thing, because they are, like I said, like administering different passages and questions for all of the different standards that are tested. So it starts in January and can go on, you know, I mean, each week they can do a few a week, they can do a few a month. So there isn't, I mean, it'd be more of, I guess, a window, but I mean, they could start administering it the first day of school, the portfolio. There isn't a set time frame like there are for the rest of these, where there's actual windows that we were told that, you know, we had to go by. So the portfolio.
I appreciate the teachers that are doing those portfolios.
Absolutely.
I definitely appreciate the value, and reflection is the key, when the kids have the ability to reflect over what they did at the beginning of the year and what they've accomplished.
Right. And the teachers use that data to really help them also know what the students know and what they need to know.
The only question that was prompted from the portfolio discussion, someone mentioned that there's a limited number of documents that are allowed for a student to provide proficiency with the state standards that are being measured at that grade level. Are those documents provided by the state, or are they driven by the instructor?
Well, FCRR provided us in the past with portfolio, I guess like approved documents that could be used. However, those are not only what can be used, but there is a criteria for it to be considered a passage that can be used. Like, word count is involved, the readability level, the questions and so forth. So they did provide this resource to our teachers so that they didn't have to go searching, and that there was a level of consistency there. Absolutely.
All third graders have the same expectations as far as what the contents of that portfolio looks like.
Correct, the same standards, absolutely, and the same criteria for the passages. So now we are waiting for them to provide us that same kind of document with our new standards for this school year.
Great, thank you.
So we're not approving that we're giving these tests, we're just approving that the tests will be given on a particular date.
Correct, these tests that we must give.
So even though we are conscientiously objecting to the tests.
Correct.
By statute.
Right.
We don't have any problem with what day the tests are given.
Correct.
Okay.
Nor do we have a say. We're basically approving that you're gonna put this out there. That's all we're doing. But I do think it should be clear that there will be some, and here I'm gonna editorialize, but there will be some that will say, your district had the right to have local control in approving your testing calendar. And the reality is, and I appreciate that Research and Accountability made sure that we put mandates and show these are not choices that we have as a district. We could strike out district under 3, it looks like tests, but it still would be required by the state. So,
Do we say thank you, Alberto Carvalho? Is he the one that's leading the charge and making sure that every test is identified from its source of mandate, which is, again, another little bit of, a little
I thought we were
civilization.
supposed to snap when we say his name. You know, Alberto.
But that's Miami-Dade, that's the Miami-Dade superintendent who recognizes that when we talk about testing and the Florida, wherever they are, the judges will say, oh, it's the district that's doing, just those teachers are just testing the kids to death. It's got nothing to do with standardized testing. Really?
No, the first thing I looked at on this piece of paper was the word mandate. I thought, yes.
Yeah.
It's not suggestion, possible.
I appreciate that so much.
We work with Miami.
Yes, I was gonna say Miami-Dade has this also posted, very similar to ours.
You work with them in what way?
We
In
copied
the
it.
format that they copy ours.
It was on Pinterest.
We liked it, we took it.
We wish we had the idea first.
Smart use of resources.
Ms. Crowell's gonna pin this later.
I'd like to make a
Once it's
motion.
approved.
Once it's
I'd
approved.
like to make a motion.
Okay, would you?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2014-15 district testing calendar for Citrus County Schools.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Balfour, a second by Ms. Bryan to approve the 2014-2015 district testing calendar for Citrus County Schools. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Attorney Legal Matters. Okay, we just need to go to that one issue. No, you're fine. Yeah. And we are going, I apologize, I have it here.
I have two pictures on there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you done with your attorney legal matters?
No, ma'am, we have the agenda item.
Okay.
Which I can't repeat. Basically what it is that there was a contract with Medicaid and they provided it, and when we submit all of our paperwork, and they reimburse us a certain amount of money. Apparently our contract ran out, and so they have issued a settlement agreement, and it's on there for about $85,000.
It's the last quarter's reimbursement for last fiscal year. The contract with DMS and the Agency for Healthcare Administration has not been finalized. which in turn has not come down to us to finalize to do a new renewal of the contract. So this is DMS's way of paying us. It's actually a settlement agreement, so that's how we get our reimbursement until the contracts are finalized.
It's just for information.
It's a formality that we have to approve.
We have to approve it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the settlement agreement with DMS? No? No.
It'd be the Agency for Healthcare Administration.
Okay, between the, okay, for the settlement agreement between the State of Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration and Citrus County Schools.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Deutschman, a second by Ms. Powers to approve the settlement agreement between the State of Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration and the Citrus County Schools. Any more discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradshaw, I have two questions for you, and I don't know if you're staying for the workshop, so I don't want to hold my questions if you're going to leave.
No, ma'am, I intend on being here for the over-the-counter medicine,
Go ahead.
for the expulsion portion.
Oh, but you're going to leave after the state before that? All right, so I'll just ask you quickly. There was
I
two-
can stay if you want.
No, it's all right, I'll just ask you now. There was 2 articles in the newspaper today about legal issues having to do with the Citrus County School District.
Right.
One of them, well, you don't read the Chronicles, maybe you don't know this. One of them had to do with the bid for the garbage with FDS, and FDS is going, is it FDS that we have the contract with? And now they're going for the county to get approval to take our garbage out of the county to a different landfill.
Good
Right,
fellow.
we had a,
I don't know who it was, I can't remember.
we had a contract with Florida Express Environmental. We rebid it out. Goodfellows won the bid. Florida Express Environmental protested the bid and then dropped their bid protest, and at the last meeting, you approved the award of the bid to Goodfellas. There's an issue in that there's a county ordinance which talks about that you are not allowed to remove solid waste from the county without getting the Board of County Commissioners approval. And I think that that is going to be an issue between the garbage hauler and the county as to whether they can or cannot do that. In the interim, they are going to deliver to the Citrus County landfill, or then it would, obviously, if they don't do that and they can't pick up our garbage or do whatever, it would be a performance issue that we would address as far as the
Okay, do
contract.
we care where our garbage goes?
Within limits, no.
Well, the only, I ask this for 2 reasons. First of all,
That,
you know, we've had sort of a philosophical conversation about keeping our business in the county. When we did our construction, we wanted to bid it out to local contractors. We want, you know, our vendors who bid always say, you know, look, I'm local, can, you know, is there anything, you know, I live here, I work here. So that would be one concern in that we're a governmental agency dealing with another governmental agency. Do we want to do anything that undermines their budget because of it's the county paid through the landfill? The second question is, if this Goodfellows is using a different landfill to save money, is he going to pass along the savings to us?
I don't believe so, because we bid it out as a, you know, it was a price per pickup per container type situation, so all of that was contracted into the bid as far, it was.
Well, that's why they won the bid, though, because they were the lower.
They were the low bid, the lowest most responsible bidder.
But
So-
then if we have a contract with somebody and they do something cheaper, you know, I think it's almost like a construction job, and then they're gonna use less labor, less quality of stuff to save money. I mean, don't we have a say in that?
No, ma'am, I mean, they were the lowest responsible bidder, they bid it out at something that may be a way that we rewrite our bid documents when we put our bids out, as far as our specs are concerned.
And that would have to use the county landfill.
I don't know what districts, but there are a few districts, or used to be a few districts in the state, because, you know, we're mandated by state statute on have a bid, go low bid. However, some districts have gone to the measures where they will say within 2% we'll keep it local. You know, 2% of a bid, so I don't know if I can find.
Or you can do a
district.
qualifications-based process
Yeah.
too.
Correct.
Qualifications and
That's one of the criteria.
Well, wouldn't you want to know where your garbage was going? I mean, or any entity, you know, if we bought milk from the farmer and then we don't know where the milk is coming from, they start bringing in milk from Georgia or somewhere, and we decide.
China.
Or China, yeah, or drywall from China, whatever. You know, it was just one of those issues that I read about last week and today, that I remember our discussions over many years
about the local issue.
Because even when we go out for contract and pick our construction job, you know, contract management, we always ask them to use local vendors, local contractors.
But one of the interesting pieces becomes, and this is not on the Goodfellows, so I want to make this clear that this I'm saying. But one of the things that becomes interesting, and I sit on the committee for choosing our preferred contractors, is we've had contractors who will put an office in your county, but they actually are operating well outside of, in some cases, the state. And so the question becomes, what defines local? Is it geographical? Is it the ownership? And so those are, I think, some pieces I know we've struggled with where the person technically was in one, you know, saying they were a Citrus person, but the reality was they were in another state. They just happened to rent an office and say, we are in Citrus County. So that's the only thing I would struggle with, is to say, I think we have an obligation of due diligence, but I do think that there becomes a question, and I think in our construction documents or expectation now we view geographical to say what is, you know, what is the area, and is it proximity to us? Because one of the things you get concerned with is, okay, they might be a Citrus County, but what if they're actually right next door to us? Or they're closer to us because they happen to be in Sumter, right over the line in Sumter. Does that mean that they actually are out of the area, but all their employees work in Citrus County? You know, what are we caring about? I think what we're trying to do is keep money in Citrus County, I would hope is the idea.
When we were doing the contracting, was where the subs were coming from too.
Right.
The contractor might be local, but all the subs were coming from Marion County or Alachua County or whatever, and we were having a problem with that.
Or the vice versa, where the contractor may be out of the area, but they're at least using the subs from here.
And we were very clear about making that, you know, I mean, it's just, it just never came up before, and it was a question.
I'll talk with Mr. Blocker and when we start doing bids on some of those things, as far as maybe keeping it localizing things if at all possible.
Defining what local is.
What local is.
Yeah, because, you know, we have the largest budget. I'm sure we're the largest employer. No, they know that. You guys have more money than we do.
Largest landowner.
Yeah, so, you know, and we have a county that's suffering. We have people that are out of work. We have people that are on fixed incomes. And I think anything that we can keep here and also help support the county budget benefits all of us. So, I think that's important. The other thing was the public records lawsuit with the babies. You at liberty to discuss that at all?
I can give you a brief update as going forward. There was you know, the local court trial judge ruled against us as far as the disclosure of those records, saying that they became public at the end of the first lawsuit. Issued an order keeping those records sealed during the pendency of the appeal, although I think those records did get disseminated. It has gone up on appeal, both the initial brief, the answer brief, and the reply brief, excuse me, have been filed with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and there are oral arguments scheduled for, I believe, October 16th, to argue that in front of, probably a 3-judge panel in front of them.
And who's doing that?
Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay. Is he the one representing us on this whole issue?
Yes, ma'am.
What's his thinking on this, that it was not because of the ongoing?
I prefer not to get into the legal strategy.
Well, you've already discussed it with us at some point, so.
Have I discussed it with you at some point? Yes, ma'am. And I've discussed it
So
with
nothing's
Ms. Goss.
changed?
No, ma'am. I mean, we'll go and see what you know, it's a unique set of facts. And so hopefully, based upon the factual situation, you know, we'll get a favorable ruling out of the DCA. And if not, then that'll be the end of it.
Okay, once that's concluded, that it's administrative law, this is a federal lawsuit.
No, this isn't a federal lawsuit. This is the public records lawsuit that's.
No, but after this is decided, I thought the other one had been set aside until the outcome of this.
I don't think the other one was set aside because of this. I think the other one was taken off the trial docket because there are competing motions for summary judgment and other legal motions that are pending. And I believe Judge Hodges, who who was the sitting federal judge, has retired, but I think he kept his files with him. So he kind of retired and was finishing out what was on his docket. I think I'm correct on that. And so the process is kind of slowed down as far as that is concerned. I don't believe there's a trial date set in that federal lawsuit yet.
Okay, and is this still a FISBA issue?
That, yes, ma'am.
Both of them?
The public records, no. Yes, ma'am.
Board members, is there anything else? Okay, just some housekeeping items before we close the special meeting and we go into the workshop. I'm going to take a break after this, if that's okay. And then the question I think is do we want to just keep working until we're done, or do we want to take a break for lunch? I'm listening to you. I'd like that too. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. Shoot for 11:20, and we'll read. So I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the special meeting, and we will reconvene, or we will convene and open the workshop at 11:20.